I always have to check the septum before we really get started. Hey guys, it's Sabrina. Today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. It's a little late, like by the time I'm posting this it's probably going to be mid to late July. Hopefully I get up earlier, but it's going to be late. That's fine. Okay, so the first question is, what was the best book that you've read so far this year? For that, I'm gonna have to go with Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This is a sci-fi that only takes place in 2025, but we'll ignore how close that is. But it takes place in the United States that is dealing with severe water shortages, also things like disease and drugs are rampant, and it follows a girl named Lauren and her survival throughout this period of time as she's trying to start a new religion, a new philosophy. It doesn't sound that good, but it's so good. This is a book that has really stuck with me throughout the year. I think about it all the time, especially whenever it rains. I think about how lucky I am, but I think especially with climate change being at the forefront of everyone's consciousness, that this is definitely a really great book to pick up right now. Then the second question is, what was the best sequel that you read so far this year? And for that I'm going to have to go with Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. To be honest, I actually haven't read that many sequels. I think I have 2 that I've read so far this year, so I should ramp it up on that. But Vengeful is the sequel to Vicious, which follows 2 former college roommates who have now become enemies. And in college they discovered that near-death experiences can give you superpowers, essentially. Vicious was written as a standalone, or it was kept as a standalone for a couple of years, so going into Vengeful, I was kind of nervous about how she would tie it in and continue the larger story, but it was really good. I loved it, and I was really surprised how easily I was able to get back in with the cast of characters and how easily I was able to get invested given how many years it's been since I've read Vicious. The third question is new release that you haven't had time— wait, what is it? The third question is new release that you haven't read yet but that you want to. I'm gonna have to change this one. To be honest, I'm going to change the next one too because I do not keep up with new releases. I don't think my wallet could handle it, but I'm gonna change this to a book that is new to me, like a new buy that I haven't read yet, and that is The End of Policing by Alex Vitale. From what I understand, this book makes the case for police abolition, which is something that I'm really interested in, and I would love to learn more about the particulars, which I believe are described in here. I'm really excited for this one. It's a short nonfiction, so I'm sure I can get through it. Number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Like I said, that was weird. Like I said, I don't keep up with new releases. I don't do it, so I'm gonna just skip this one. But to make up for that, I do have 2 choices for question number 5. So question number 5 is, what was your biggest disappointment so far? The 2 books I have for that are The Overstory by Richard Powers and The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Ken Follett? I can't. I'm not looking it up either because I don't like this guy. Let's start with The Overstory. This book was given to me by the people that I babysit, and they really talked it up, and they said it's their favorite book, and then I did not like it at all. It's about people and their connection to trees and how important trees are to them, and then like eventually they come together at the end and like there's political action. But the thing is that the first like third of the book, it just seems like it's all short stories, and then in the second half is when stuff starts to come together, but it was boring. There were a lot of characters that definitely didn't need to be there. I think starting things off as if they're like short stories, like I kind of liked them as short stories, but for the beginning of an entire novel and that's how we're supposed to get to know the characters, did not like it. I did not connect with any of the characters. I did not care in like the second half of the book when anything sad happened. Some of the like short story sections got me with the sad stuff, but after the short story section ended, I just could not get on with it, and it was so boring, and it put me in a reading slump for the entire month of June because I did not want to pick it up. So this was a huge disappointment because people I babysit for really talked highly about it. And then we have The Pillars of the Earth. This is a story about, you know, a guy who wants to build a cathedral, I guess. I did not even end up finishing this one. The writing, first of all, was terrible. Like, I can't understand why this is upheld as a really popular historical fiction novel because writing is so bad. I can't get over it. And then also, it's just so misogynistic. Like, all the female characters are not fleshed out, terrible stereotypes for the most part. There's sexual violence, which really just made me put the book down because it's like, you're having this whole terrible book that I'm like trying to get through because I know it's popular, but then all the female characters are just treated like shit and they're just awful, and I hated this. Like, I really hated it. I can't wait to get this out of my room. Then question 6 was, what was your biggest surprise so far this year? And for me, that is Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. This book books follows two people who are just starting a relationship as a civil war breaks out in their country, and then to add to that, magic portals are popping up all across the globe, which can transport people from one country to the next. So good. So good. I think that like I didn't really connect to the characters as much as I do in some other books, but regardless, the story was really enthralling. I really loved the larger themes in this novel, and it was a huge surprise for me because this has been sitting on my shelves forever. I think it was just something I picked up because it was like on sale on Barnes & Noble's website, so I'm really glad I picked it up, and this is definitely a new favorite. Question 7 is favorite new author. This is one that I struggled with a little bit because I don't feel like I've really read too many new authors or anyone that I would really say is a favorite, but the closest that I have is Angela Davis. I read her Prison's Obsolete recently, last month, and I really loved it. I was expecting to like it, but going into it, I was really surprised by how well Davis wrote. And a lot of non-fiction, especially stuff that's written by like professors, a lot of it can be like really heady and it takes a while to get into it and you kind of have to push yourself to get through it because you want to learn. But this was really engaging. She was able to cover everything. Like, I was really surprised. I feel like I'm just saying nonsense, but I was really impressed by her writing style, and I would love to pick up more of her work. Number 8 is Newest Fictional Crush. I have a boyfriend. No, I don't really get those, so I'm also skipping this one, I'm sorry. Number 9 is what is your newest favorite character, and for that I'm going to have to go with Addie LaRue from The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. For people who don't know, this is a story of like a girl who sells her soul to the devil in exchange for being able to live forever, but at the same time she's cursed to be forgotten by everyone she's ever met. The book was so good, the writing was beautiful, and I really loved Addie LaRue as a character. I could empathize with her. I think this was a perfect book to read coming out of COVID because a lot of people were dealing with some intense loneliness and separation from social environments during COVID, so I think that you can definitely relate to this book then, even though it's not the same thing, but you get where I'm going. But yeah, I really loved Addie. Number 10 is Book That Made You Cry, and for that I'm going to go with Moonglow by Michael Chabon. This book is kind of a retelling of the author's grandfather's life as it was told to him on his grandfather's deathbed. So already that's so sad. I have a really sensitive spot for grandparents because I loved my grandparents. I love my grandparents. My grandmother's still alive so much. I actually had to put down this book for a couple months when I first started reading it because I was like, this is too much for me. I'm gonna get real sad. Especially he has written scenes where he's with his grandfather and his grandfather only has like a couple hours or like a day or two left to live, and it's so sad, but at the end it was like really worth it. I loved this book. His grandfather lived such an interesting life, and I'm so happy that he wrote this book to honor him. Number 11 is Book That Made You Happy, and this one was kind of difficult for me. I don't think I read many like happy books, but for this one I decided to go with Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. This is the fourth book in the Stormlight Archives, which is his like epic high fantasy super long series. I read this in January and I really loved it. It was so nice to like have this huge book with all these characters that you already love and just to spend time with them, I guess. That makes me sound really sad. Regardless, this book did make me really happy. So there you go. And then number 12 is the most beautiful book that you've read this year, and for that I'm gonna have to go with Journey to the End of the Night by, his name like is on the front, by Louis Ferdinand Céline. I'm trying to say with somewhat of a French accent, but I probably did it wrong. This book ended up being like kind of boring, although I did like the writing in some aspects, and again the author is like a terrible person. I wouldn't have necessarily picked it up if I had known how terrible he was, but I didn't figure it out until I was already like halfway through, so I might as well have finished it. But I love this cover. That's why I bought it. I didn't even read the back. I was so into this cover. I thought it was so cool. I still stand by that. This is an amazing cover. And then number 13 is What Books Do You Need to Read by the End of the Year. For this one I've chosen 3 books. The first of which is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is, so I've actually just started this, but it's still kind of hard to describe, so I would say that this is a high fantasy, super crazy long novel, and it has a lot to do with dragons, and it seems like there's a lot to do with politics. I'm sure at some point I'll be able to describe it more succinctly, but that's essentially what it is. It's huge, and I am like a good way through it, but I wanted to set myself a reasonable goal, so I'll definitely finish this soon. After that, we've got The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander. This book makes the argument that mass incarceration is the new Jim Crow. It's just like a continuation of our incredibly racist system. I read the first chapter of this like a year ago for one of my classes, and it was really interesting, and it's also always recommended. It's always on the list of things for people to read before law school, or like for prospective law students, and I'm actually starting law school in the fall, so I'm interested in the subject of mass incarceration in general, but also given that a lot of people are recommending it for law students, I would really love to pick this up soon. And then the last book I have is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. I don't know anything about this. I picked it up because it's one of Phoebe Bridgers' favorite books, and I actually kind of want to do like a I read Phoebe Bridgers' favorite books video. Also, the cover's really cool, and it's a bunch of short stories. I don't read many short stories, so I think it would be a really good thing for me to pick up. Okay guys, there you have it, a mid-year book freakout. Somewhat past mid-year, but it's fine. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon with another video. Bye! I don't know why I did that, like...